Welcome to Yellow Door Urban Homestead. I'm an urban gardener growing in a small space in my backyard. I am urban homesteading. I am growing our own food. I am a mother of two, one adult son and one teenager. I'm growing food for us to eat, fresh food, food that I know hasn't been sprayed, food that I know, how it was grown. I do have a small orchard area where I am growing apples and peaches, and I'm also growing meat. I'm growing eggs, so I have 7 chickens and I have 5 quail. But the biggest thing that I'm doing in my backyard is growing food. It is something that I started doing in 2020, and it's a lot of things to me. It is food, it is peace, it's a hobby. It's a thing that I do that makes me feel good. Like that one little seed can produce so much food, and it's just amazing to me. And it's a lot of work, but it's a lot of food, and you wouldn't think you could grow that much food in your backyard. But I do kind of intense planting out here. So I'll fill the bed as much as I can. Just kind of the thing that you do in an urban setting when you don't have a lot of space. And I will tell you, during the summer, I don't buy vegetables. I have no reason to. Even in the winter, because I do preserve my food. I freeze some. I'm learning to can a little bit better. I dehydrate. I dry things, like just air dry them. So I also don't know the last time I purchased herbs, because herbs grow huge and they produce a lot in one season. And some things I just grow because I like to grow it. I have a lot of medicinal herbs, and I'm trying to learn those as well. So 3 years I've been doing this, and it's a lot to learn. It's a lot to do. And I can't see myself not doing gardening. And I say to myself, like, why didn't you start earlier? Why are you just now starting? But I don't think you would know how much you would enjoy it until you start. My backyard before was actually pretty scary. I didn't come back here that much before I did this, and now I find myself here all the time. I never thought that this would be what my backyard looked like, honestly. I watched so many YouTube videos, and I did a lot of reading on the internet. And so as the time has passed, we went from 1 garden bed to 3 garden beds. And then it just kind of exploded into what it is right now. So 365 days a year, this urban garden grows. I do a lot of growing in bags. It helps me to have more space to grow where, I couldn't make the bed big enough to grow the same plants in it. I use bags, and that has very much extended my growing space. There's probably about 60 of them out here, if not more. That's where I was at last count. I missed these. They got huge. It's cucumbers. I'll probably make pickles out of them. I'm very new to canning. I did a little bit of canning last year, but I'm not exactly sure I did it right. But I am gonna try again. You can get a lot of food from a small space garden. So like I said, I grow in bags, but I also grow kind of in raised beds. So the cinder block beds are the raised beds, and then you see the bags are here. I also have no dig beds, and so basically I just took compost. Well, I put cardboard down, put compost on top of it, and then just started growing. So it doesn't have to be super expensive to start a garden. Actually, the bricks that I have, most of them, they were free. Someone on Facebook Marketplace said, if you want them, you can have them. And so I do containers, raised beds, no dig. Also, my orchard area and my herbs, they're all in ground. So I'm growing in 4 different ways. I grow up to. This saves me space. So where, I would be growing, let's say, these cantaloupe on the ground, and they would just be kind of sprawling everywhere. I grow them up, and it gives me space to grow more, down on the ground and in the beds. but it's a mix, and I kind of like that. I like that everything does not look the same. I like that, you know, there's some contrast in the garden. These are my blueberry bushes. Those are low bush, and I cut them to keep them the size that I want them to be. Blueberry bushes can get huge, and so can still, you know, grow in my backyard. I've got tomatoes back here, which is the normal, you know, gardening thing. There's tomatoes back here. There's squash. There's zucchini. I'm even growing asparagus, which is a perennial that you'll have for the rest of your life once you plant it. I'm growing onions, and I'm actually growing the onions in a hole of the bricks. So, not the biggest ones, but they're edible. They will work in a meal. What else? Like, I have beans growing up this trellis right here. Need to go ahead and harvest those. My trellises are cattle panel trellises, and they can literally stay up all year long, and you don't have to keep taking them down and putting them back up. And they're really good for your vining things. So you can grow things that vine up a trellis. And so I love growing up, is what they call it. I have basil and oregano growing. The way I see it, if it's in a seed packet and it can be planted in soil, I'm gonna try it in my backyard. But I mean, cucumbers, tomatoes, beans, squash, cantaloupe, watermelon. I'm not very good at growing watermelon, but I try it every year. So that's a basil harvest. Once they start to try to flower, I always take the tops so that the plant can keep growing. And I make tea out of it. I will dehydrate it or let it air dry so that I can use it in the winter. But my garden does grow all year long. And so we're in July. Next month in August, I'll start planting things for fall, like your broccolis and your cabbages, collards, things like that. But I grow 365 days a year. I don't really keep up with how much food I harvest. I harvest it, I eat it, I preserve it. I probably should, but in general, there's a lot of food that comes out of this garden every year, and I'm very happy for it. When I started gardening, I can't say that I had a profound reason why I was doing it. Like, there was no, you know, I want to know where my food comes from. There was no, I don't trust the food system, if I'm honest. I'm just going to be honest. It was just more of needing to find something to do, knowing that my daughter would eat it. But at this point, yeah, that's kind of my reasoning for gardening. I do want to know where my food comes from. I do want to know that it wasn't sprayed. Those are the things that I do now. It is my reason. I'm out here with the girls. So I have, hello lady. I do have 7 chickens. This one is Peace. I'm gonna feed them. They're very much used to me now. They also will peck me if need be, but they're used to us now. We recently got 4 new ones. See, there she goes. She will peck me. But we recently got 4 new chickens. I wanted different color layers. The girls I have now, they lay like a light brown and a light pink. Another thing that I do over in the corner of my garden, it's like right beside my porch, is I do compost. It's just like a 2-bin system that I have set up over here. It's looking a little messy now. Like I said, we're in July, but yeah, I harvest, I keep kitchen scraps, and I do try to do hot composting. There is a thermometer in here somewhere. Yeah, it's not very hot right now. I need to warm it back up. I harvest water in a rain barrel. It's a collapsible rain barrel, and I need to put a spout here so that it comes down. But I do harvest rainwater as well in my backyard. So I figured I'd bring you over into the greenhouse. I'm growing a little bit over here. I have some shelves in here And so these are just some shelves that I got. This was an old shelf that was in the house. I think I got these shelves from Walmart. So this is kind of a multi-purpose use. So I dry things in here and I start seeds in here. And back here, there's a table with all my seed starting stuff on it. And I like to have a spot to sit if I just want to come out here and hang out. So I find that these greenhouses kind of get a bad name because, you know, they're not as sturdy as a greenhouse that you would build out of wood, but you can reinforce it well enough where that doesn't end up being a problem. When I originally got it, it definitely flew all over my backyard. And then I reinforced it with some stakes. I reinforced it with some cinder blocks, some rocks, and it's been a really good greenhouse for me. It didn't take a lot to set it up. It's a nice spot, and if I actually maximize this space, you know, I could grow more. But I also kind of wanted it as a space for me to come and relax, to get out of the sun, to get out of the rain, to get out of the cold. And I don't heat it or anything, but it works for what I need. So one of my biggest struggles you would think would be space, but I find that I have sufficient space to grow a lot of the food that I want to grow. The tall food, the big food, the wide food. I can grow it. I can trellis it up. I can let it sprawl in a space where I don't normally walk. Honestly, one of my biggest struggles is the weeds that grow in my backyard. So I think it's called bindweed. And it's a running weed. So once it comes up, it just roots and keeps going. And so I found that I've been able to suppress it with weed fabric. And that's not a thing that you have to have, because for a long time, I just used cardboard and I would lay that down in my walkway. I do a lot of my weeding mostly in the off season. During the season, if I see it, I'll pull it, but I'm much more concerned about harvesting my food. I've been lucky enough not to have to fight too much wildlife. Like I have squirrels. I had mice last year, pretty bad. I have had possums in the back, but not messing with my food. They were messing with my chickens, but that worked itself out too. And so when you talk about growing in an urban setting in your backyard, there are things that you don't have to deal with that you deal with out in, you know, in the country or where you have lots of land. And I don't honestly aspire to have a lot of land. I enjoy this. Now, I do want to live in a place that allows me to have more animals. I want goats, but in general, I'm pretty happy with this space that I have right now. And I honestly don't aspire to have a lot of land. Starting a garden in your backyard can get expensive, but you don't have to spend a lot of money to do this. And I kind of want people to understand that, because I know when I started, I was buying everything. Someone said something about a fertilizer, I went and got it. Someone said something about a way to trellis, I went and got it. And I just had to stop and I had to think, what is it that I can do that's not very expensive? Because the point of this is to grow your own food, but you don't want to grow your own food at a cost that's more than what, you know, you'd pay at the store. No dig is a wonderful way to do it, because the only thing you're really going to pay for is the compost. You can find the cardboard for free. So I think my space is still very cozy, very neat, but I did not spend a lot of money for it, and I didn't buy everything all at once. And I do share this garden with the world. I share this garden over on YouTube at Yellow Door Urban Homestead, and I also share my garden over on Instagram. Look at those tomatoes. They're cherry tomatoes. I do share my garden over on Instagram at Miss Asia Spratley. I just enjoy sharing. I want people to know that you don't have to have a whole lot of land and you don't have to have a whole lot of space to grow a garden that produces a whole lot of food. This is absolutely a long-term thing for me. I think that I'll always want to be in a garden surrounded by my plants. I'll always want to be thinking about what I'm going to grow next. I'll always be watching YouTube to see what others are doing and admiring their garden and admiring their tenacity and their patience, and because it takes all of that to grow a garden, but what you get back is so worth it. It is very rewarding, and I absolutely love being a gardener.
Subscribe to Exploding Alternatives, and please share this video if you liked it. You can also follow Asia on YouTube and Instagram. Thanks for watching.